Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey everyone, Duncan Alney here, and I'm the host of the Firebelly Social Show, where I talk with leading entrepreneurs and CEOs of mission-driven beverage and food brands. And this episode is brought to you by Firebelly, where we make brands more likable through social media marketing. It's all we do, baby. We provide organic and paid social strategies along with influencer work, some design, some photography to get them ROI and fast. And we've been voted one of the top 10 social media agencies in the world. Slow down, Duncan, by Clutch. And Firebelly's helped clients like Netflix, Qdoba, Fiji Water, Upland Brewing, and many others transform their social media marketing strategies. If you want to establish your brand, expand your reach, get ROI, let's talk today. Go to firebellymarketing.com. But I am so excited to bring you a great guest today. His name is Blake Jones, and he's one of the founders of West Fork Whiskey. Welcome, Blake.
Hey, thanks for having me. As always, it's good to see you and good to see Jeremy and chat about all things West Fork.
Awesome. And let me introduce Jeremy King, Chief Growth Officer and Partner at Firebelly Marketing, and my longtime friend and one of the first clients at Firebelly. So, Jeremy, this is your first podcast, baby. So please bring your inner energy and vibe to the table. And you guys also know each other. We've all worked together or talked about working together in the past. So we can all speak freely and bring your irreverence to the table. So let's start, Blake. You know, I want you to introduce yourself. You know, I could do a C-level intro of you, but, you know, very briefly, like, you know, how did you start this company and what is West Fork Whiskey essentially about?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I apologize for all the noise in the background. We are a working distillery and a small growing company. So, of course, you know, folks are here trying to make the whiskey and sell the whiskey. But in general, our company is all about, and we say we're hell-bent on creating uniquely Indiana approachable whiskey. And so that means a lot of different things. And one of those things are very corn-forward products, above 70, 80%, even 99% corn, mash bills in our particular brands and some particular brands. But when we looked at the whiskey industry, when we started this company, cashed out 401ks, guaranteed some loans, maxed out some credit cards, you know, that entrepreneurial story. We just thought it was almost, some of the brands were just felt unobtainable or unapproachable. And people were almost afraid, right, to try whiskey, to think about whiskey and to come into the market. And so our company is really all about not just creating approachable whiskey, but also being approachable and fun in what we do, so that we can invite people into the whiskey market.
I mean, that's really interesting. First of all, I love hell bent on great whiskey. I always like a straight up, like, in your face brand promise. It's like, we're not here to F around. We're here to make great whiskey. And if you don't like it, sorry. And to back that up, you guys don't make any gin or vodka or anything else. It's all whiskey, right?
That's correct. I mean, a lot of folks, when they're starting distilleries, you know, because of cash, frankly, because they can't afford it, and it's been hard sometimes to afford it, they have to make vodka, gin, liqueurs, and other things to help pay the bills. And, you know, that's something we decided we never wanted to do. We never wanted to live in somebody's mind as a vodka producer, as a liqueur producer, as a gin producer. Frankly, we don't like those products either. So how the hell do you sell something you don't like? So those are the two main reasons why we don't make anything else. And all about whiskey.
And from a story standpoint, man, that's a clear message. We are whiskey, and not only are we whiskey, but your tagline communicates the fact that you're very passionate about it. It's like, I'm not just making good bourbon. It's like, I'm hell bent on. Anyway, I'm a little preoccupied with that. So let's talk a little bit more about what's the last, you know, I know this is probably a cliched question, but what's COVID been like for you? Like, for example, Firebelly doubled. You know, what was it like for West Fork? You know, was COVID kind to you, or was it a bitch of an experience?
I think for everybody, it was a bitch of an experience, right? I don't think anybody had fun during COVID, and certainly even still coming out of COVID, no matter the industry. And, you know, the bar and restaurant business, we do run a cocktail bar as part of our business. We have a tasting room and cocktail bar, and it was shut down. So imagine, 30% of your sales walking out the door, high margin sales too, immediately. So shit, what do you do? Right. And we have a healthy wholesale division, that is growing 40 to 75% year over year the last few years. And that continued to grow through COVID, all about having the right product, the right price, at the right time. But with our bar team, we didn't want to let anybody go. We have great bartenders, we have great people, and we wanted to continue our, helping or supporting our retail staff. And so what we did during COVID is we created a non-alcoholic cocktail mixer line called the Lockdown Cocktail Co. And we want, like I talked about approachability already today, we wanted approachable products, right? An approachable cocktail experience is why people like to come to West Fork to drink. And so how do you do that? And how do you keep your bar team busy? And ours was, well, shit, let's make these non-alcoholic cocktail mixers and sell them to go at retail, because we know people are drinking at home and they want cocktails and they can't go get cocktails. So in general, I say all of that to say we grew 40% during COVID. Our sales in our retail were actually up. We did not see a decrease in retail sales, even though folks couldn't sit at our bar and drink our products. We actually saw a bump in retail sales through that non-alcoholic cocktail mixer line, and selling bottles to go. And then our wholesale continued to develop and we continue to sell more. So other craft companies, brutal. A lot of people had to lay people off. A lot of folks had to furlough employees. Some people got into the hand sanitizer business. So in general, our industry and the craft beverage and certainly the craft spirit space took a big hit, but we're fortunate. We grew.
I love that, you didn't focus on, dilute your focus and look at sanitizer. I'm sure that was compelling. And even though, a little bird told me that you prefer your whiskey straight, just, whiskey with nothing else, which is how I lean. But I think that, the cocktail piece, it's complementary. It doesn't, it's a mixer. And so you sort of extended the line and will you continue that? Will you continue the lockdown cocktail company?
Yeah, we're debating. At first it was all about how can we, again, create an approachable cocktail experience, which then drives our whiskey sales, right? So at the core of everything that we do, it has to be about selling whiskey. That's what we're here to do. That's what the business is about. It has to be the core of everything we do, right? So if it helps whiskey sales, we certainly will at least look at it. It doesn't mean we'll do it or not. And so we still do sell these non-alcoholic mixers in-house, and we do sell some of them. We've got a small batch variety, which are made with more fresh ingredients. They're only good for about 30 days. And we sell those seasonally in our cocktail bar. And we do still sell the batch ones that we used to, but we stopped selling them online just because we felt like to get that company going as much as we wanted it to, it was going to take us away from our core business of ultimately selling whiskey and lead us into another market of fully of non-alcoholic cocktail mixers. And then you have to do its own social media for that, its own operations for that, in order to actually create a functional, sustainable business. So we're debating it. We're undecided, but we're not supporting it a lot right now. Again, unless it's really at the core is selling whiskey, we're not going to chase it probably very hard.
And it's interesting, some of the things that, as I was digging into this, it's some of the things that you've done where you've really, you guys are which I love. You're unapologetically proud Hoosiers. You guys are. In fact, you talk about Indiana a lot in the brand. You talk about, making great whiskey, but also the importance of the Indiana history around whiskey. And I wanted to ask you about that. What did you do specifically with that and extending your product line too?
So on one hand, especially when you're selling across the state, is it good to be about Indiana? Is it not? When you're selling in Indiana, it's great to be so in your face about Indiana, right? So that's always a challenging marketing kind of placement, right, or positioning there. But we've always thought that because we have great corn here and great hard limestone water, Indiana should create some of the best whiskey in the world. So if you think about, Kentucky and how they market themselves, Tennessee and how they market themselves, it's about great hard limestone water, and then they buy their corn from states like Indiana, Illinois, or Ohio, and a lot from Indiana. Well, it's like, well, we have great hard limestone water, and we have even better temperature fluctuations, which is good for whiskey aging. And then, we've got the great corn. So why don't we do it here? And why don't we create a brand that Indiana can be proud of? And so we just decided to adopt that as part of our identity because it just made sense to us. And again, created some differentiation as opposed to Kentucky or Tennessee when folks are thinking about new brands to try and new whiskeys to try. It's like, well, this is different. It's not the same Kentucky stuff. It's not the same Tennessee juice that I've always drank. Let's give it a try as consumers become more adventurous.
That's awesome. And tell us about Old Hamer and the story behind that.
Yeah, so we say we're hell bent on creating whiskey, right? And uniquely Indiana whiskey. And so one of the things that we decided to do was, so we can continue to develop our company, develop what we're about, testing product, is come up with or resurrect an old Indiana brand that was originally around in the 1800s. And so Old Hamer is a brand that was originally made in southern Indiana in the middle of the 1800s. And the story goes, when the Hamer family migrated from New York to southern Indiana, instead of taking any cash notes or bank notes at the time for milling all the local farmers' grains, what they did was they took excess corn in the form of payment. And so what else do you do with excess corn in the middle of the 1800s? You make whiskey out of it. And so we brought that brand back to life in a 99% corn, 1% malted barley fashion. And to our knowledge, we're kind of the first to market in developing that high of corn bourbon out there. And again, that's all about approachability because that creates a soft, sweet palate. And also Indiana because it's 99% corn.
I mean, I have only tasted the cask strength version, and damn, it is potent. And I have a somewhat sophisticated but maybe undeveloped or less refined palate. But man, I could feel some vanilla in there, and it's got a slightly sweet finish. So you don't even need the rocks. You just do not need rocks with that. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. And the cash strength's a big product. I mean, when you're drinking 116 to 122 proof whiskey, I mean, that's a big bourbon, no matter who's making that, right? I mean, there are a lot of brands out there that make high proof whiskey. But for as high proof as it is, if you're used to drinking high proof, you get some really nice cherry, caramel, vanilla, and sweet notes. And some people would argue that it's not big or bold enough and spicy because it doesn't have rye and it can be one-dimensional. But for those folks that like to have multiple glasses, it's a really approachable drink that you can, have a couple pours of and drink regularly. And again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create approachable products through corn.
One of my good buddies, Jason Falls, he's a big time bourbon guy, and even has done work on the marketing side for bourbon and is a great supporter of Firebelly. I'm looking forward to bringing him the whiskey in Louisville, because it's not very often that you can bring someone who's so well versed with all the higher end stuff and all the kind of like cliched stuff, and bring them something new that's kick ass, because he's always complaining that there isn't enough high proof bourbon for him. So thanks for explaining that. So what are you excited about? What's happened recently? Or are there expansions or going? I know you don't go do anything unless you're going big. So what's happened that's been big lately?
Yeah. So if folks don't know, we broke ground on a $10 million expansion. I guess that would have been in August. So we announced it earlier this year. We broke ground in August, and we're going to create this tourism asset, right, where people can come experience us, get to know us, and more of a pedestal to scream the West Fork whiskey name. And as we've grown, that's something that people expect from their wineries, their distilleries, their breweries, is an experience where they can go really intimately get to know the brand. And so we've always wanted to do something like that. Since we only run a cocktail bar, we don't do tours. And so this facility is going to do tours, education, whiskey cocktail lounge, full restaurant, event center, and it's all going to be centered around making and aging whiskey. And so it'll really give us a really nice platform and create really one of the largest craft whiskey distilleries in the country. You know, it's hard to define craft, but it's going to create one of the largest craft whiskey distilleries in the country. So we're really excited about that expansion and where that could lead our brands and our future, and again, allow us just a bigger platform to keep screaming about being hell bent on creating, you know, uniquely and great Indiana whiskey.
I know when a few years ago when Upland opened that tasting room with those magnificent French, huge French barrels, like that just completely transformed the Upland experience for me, to be in there and almost feel humbled by the size, and you know, it was great to drink in that room and the smell of the wood. So I look forward to that. I think that's going to be amazing for you to be able to immerse people in your experience and in your culture, and you know, it's your people there with them. So that congratulations. That had to be a really big thing, Blake. I mean, you know, you guys just, maybe it feels like longer than a few years, but you just started a few years ago. But what's that been like? That's a huge project.
Yeah, it's technically on paper we started in 2014, but paper doesn't matter, right? When you get started, and we really started selling whiskey in 2016. And it was young whiskey. It was basically moonshine, some of it. And so, you know, sure, we've grown a lot, but we're still really small. But if we really want to grow our products to the level of where they're known well regionally and semi-nationally or nationally or maybe even internationally, we needed a big platform to do that with. And so it's always been our goal of, you know, getting this well-known whiskey brand based in Indiana that people know it is just about whiskey, because a lot of people don't know that we have the largest contract manufacturer of whiskey in the world here in Indiana at MVP. But, you know, we don't have a really well-known brand or brands based here. And again, I talked about the fundamentals of whiskey aging with great temperature fluctuations, with great hard limestone water and great corn. And so we have all the ingredients, right? And so again, we just continued on our mission of being a well-known brand. And this is going to really help us do that to a really large extent. And it's a huge risk, a lot of money, you know, guaranteeing those bank loans. Your hand's shaking a little bit. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's what we believe in and it's what we want to do.
I mean, that is just commitment. You know, what was it like? Being at the I don't know what you call it, the groundbreaking, I guess is the right term for the groundbreaking. What was that like? That had to have been such an emotional moment for you.
Yeah, so it's surreal. We were fortunate enough to have the governor there of Indiana. We had the mayor of Westfield, the town we're going, some city council folks there, and we ended up having almost 150 or 200 people, and we expected like 50. And so it was awesome. I mean, you know, so far it's been on paper, right? And so you actually get a shovel in the ground and there's equipment on the land. And then since they've built out a huge pond that's going to be in front of the building, and they're laying footers, and like you can actually see all this stuff coming to life, as opposed to just being a pretty picture that the architects put together. And it's certainly been, you know, emotional and nerve wracking because we've never done something like that. But really exciting time to be a part of West Fork and its growth but you ask any entrepreneur, right? I mean, you've been in those seats, you know, taking risks, you know, hiring new people, you know, figuring out something new. I mean, it's very scary at the same time.
It's amazing. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
I've always loved the part of your story about how the three of you just cashed in everything you had, your 401ks, maxing out your credit cards. People love the story, and the story of West Fork is you've always been so focused on making it grow. And you were not bashful about saying, we want to be the biggest in Indiana. We want to put Indiana on the map. And you've always had that drive, and, you know, seeing you go into Westfield and making such a big impact, not only on the city, but on the state, has just been really cool to see it happen. So kudos to you for taking those risks and making it happen. It's going to flourish for sure.
Now we just need people to show up. So tell everybody, you know, and we're certainly using that mantra of, if you build it, they will come. Because we know that, California started in the 70s with their wine tourism, and that's been cultivated for 30, 40, 50 years. And it's now billions of dollars of industry. Same in Kentucky, right? And it's just one of those things where, why not Indiana? Why not us? And so again, we're going to do it. We're going to take the risk on it. It's either bankrupt or we take another huge step.
Hell bent on great whiskey. I say yes. And gosh, it had to have been great to have a nice bourbon that you made with Governor Holcomb. I mean,
he was great. I mean, he kicked back. There's a picture in the Indy Star here in Indianapolis, our largest paper, right, of us drinking together. And so that was pretty cool. He's got a sober driver, so it makes it easy for him, right? But it was certainly fun. It's a cool experience, and that's one thing about being an entrepreneur. One of those things that is rewarding, right? Or having some of those moments, because you have a lot of moments of, shoot, what's next? What are we going to do? Maybe you've lost money some months. What are the next steps? And so those are the moments that keep you fighting for another day and the next this next step, the next level. And so it's it was nice to share some drinks with him. He may have went home with a bottle or two of whiskey too.
I mean, I know that he is an aficionado, if not a very big aficionado of bourbon. So I want to give a shout out to Darren Fox too, because I know you had a great interview with him on Picture This, and I'm wondering, Jeremy and I were wondering, what is it that you like to drink best?
I mean, obviously, I'm a homer, right? I'm sure I drink other people's stuff just to know what's out there, but I drink the most of Old Hammer and West Fork juice for sure. It's either cheap, light, crisp beer. I really like. Some of Upland's beers are great. We have a great relationship with Sun King and love their beers. I try to drink local as much as I possibly can. Not a huge wine person, and I don't drink vodka or gin or liqueurs. So I like whiskey in a glass. Without any ice. And so, our bartenders joke they're great mixologists, make great cocktails, but they know my cocktail is whiskey in a glass. I don't do a whole lot else.
And get that whiskey in a glass, make sure there's no fingers. That thing is perfectly poured, ready for him to consume.
And I have a question.
I'm about ready for another one, actually. I'm empty.
I have a related question to that, because I recently went to a tequila tasting and they had a mezcal as part of it, and I'll never taste it the same. They helped us with how to actually taste it. Are there any tips for how to taste bourbon? I know you like it neat, but we were holding it on the front of our in the front of our mouth and the front of our tongue, and that's where we really got the sweet. And then once you knocked it back, that smoke really came through. Is there anything with bourbon? I've never been told. So.
Yeah, certainly, just like anything, right? There's going to be some techniques that, especially if you're new to it. First of all, you should always, if you're really getting into bourbon and you want to figure out what you like and don't like, you need to taste brands side by side. You can't drink one day and another one next week and then another one the week after, or a few days after, because it's hard for your palate to really discern those. So if you really want to figure out what you like and don't like, taste things side by side, first of all. Second of all is, do not take a quick sniff, long, slow draws, right? Especially if you're drinking high proof, because you don't want to burn out your nostrils, right? You want to actually get the characters within the whiskeys, the caramels, the vanillas, the sugars, the oak, whatever. And then other folks will say, you swish it around your mouth, and maybe if I had any more whiskey, I'd do it for you. It's like, some people call it the Kentucky chew. We'll call it the Hoosier chew. Where you kind of swish it around and chew on it a little bit. And part of that, while you're breathing in, is to oxidize it a little bit, because it'll change the palate of the whiskey. And then from there, you swallow it, and then you see how it makes you feel. Is it on the front of your palate? Is it on the middle of your palate? Is it on the back of your palate? Because sweeter whiskeys typically in the front of your palate to middle palate, maybe spicier whiskeys to the back of your palate. How does it feel in your mouth? Is it more oily? Is it not? And so But at the end of the day, I took a very Fredno approach to this, which is, one of the family members of Jim Beam. And I don't care how you're drinking my whiskey, as long as you're drinking my whiskey. Shoot it, put ice in it, put it in a cocktail. As long as it's my whiskey, I don't care.
I love it.
And you were talking about the challenges. You're taking this major risk and investment in Westfield with the agritourism and the facility that you can put people inside. What are some of the challenges? Is it an awareness challenge? Is it like getting people to try it? Is it building advocates? How do you define it in terms of marketing?
Yeah, the big challenges for us are twofold. It's getting people to know about it first, right? So it's an awareness challenge, and how do you do that? What are the right channels to do that? And then the second are getting, what's your, I guess, call to action, or getting people to actually try it. Because once people have tried a product, they're more likely to buy it, right? And so that's, hoping they try it at a restaurant or a bar. Maybe you do tastings at liquor stores, right? But, they have to know about it to buy it, first of all. So you have an awareness problem, and how do you really do that and solve that? And then secondly, how do you get them to try it are the two biggest impediments and to growth for us from the marketing perspective. And they're both very expensive to do for a young brand.
So before I ask the last couple of questions, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows how to find you. And I believe all your assets are West Fork Whiskey, correct?
All at West Fork Whiskey. We try to keep it as simple as possible. So at West Fork Whiskey, we don't tweet a whole lot, but we're mainly on Instagram, Facebook, and maybe one day we'll have a TikTok. So I hear that's what all the cool kids are doing these days.
That's right.
But at West Fork Whiskey, www.westforkwhiskey.com, and follow along with our journey.
And thanks again to our sponsor, Firebelly. We make brands more likable and profitable through social media. Organic, paid, social, influencer, creative services. You've been voted one of the top 10 social media agencies by Clutch. And if you want to talk more about your brand, reach out to us. So let's get back to some of the exciting stuff we haven't covered, which is these are some big things that you guys have accomplished. And is there a next thing or a next step or something new that you got coming on that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we obviously talked about our expansion project, but unfortunately, that's not something that's coming until sometime in 2022. I'm hoping for May. If it gets into July, I'll be a little upset, but I doubt it'll be February or April. But we're really, I guess, depending on when this airs, right? I talked about that. We got a redesign and a relaunch of our grain to glass West Fork Whiskey experience, and so we're redoing all of our brands. We're coming out with older and better whiskey in general, in a really cool way. There'll be 90 proofs. There'll be cash strengths. There'll be all single barrels for the most part, and so it's a new way to experience West Fork, older, better, and more honest about what's in the actual juice, right? So we're actually going to say on the labels, what's in it, what the mash bill was, the exact age, etc., on it, and tell you exactly what it is. So we're really excited about the relaunch of our grain to glass brands that we're making right here at 1660 Bellefontaine. And so that's going to be out soon. And again, depending on when this airs, come and see us, come and drink it. We're really excited about that.
That's amazing. So I had a question that we forgot to ask you earlier. You guys do all this amazing marketing. What do you think? What's worked, or what are you looking at making better?
We're always trying to get better, right? We spend thousands of dollars a month in social media and digital marketing, and I feel like it's constantly shifting and what's working and what's not working. It seems video content's working better, at least on social media, because that's more engaging. But at the end of the day, is that driving sales? Is that enough for someone to go to the liquor store, go to the grocery store, or come into my establishment and buy my whiskey, right? You can have pretty pictures and pretty videos and people are engaging with them, but is that actually leading to sales, right? Is that stimulating growth? And so that's certainly a channel that right now we think is critical to our business, but we're always reevaluating that. We're always asking ourselves questions of if that's the right way, whether it's through Google Analytics and what you can do through Google's platform, or Facebook and Instagram. Should we be more on YouTube? Should we do a podcast? I mean, we thought about doing podcasts and just about whiskey in general. We've done more traditional marketing channels like magazines and billboards, and it's just it's a constant battle to figure out what's working and what's not, and tracking it. But right now, we spend way more in digital than we do anything else anymore.
I mean, it's fascinating to hear about you doing billboards, and it's interesting because billboards are one of those things that they work, but you don't know to what extent they work, right? And so, but I think it's so important, and love what you're doing, which is there's a mix that you need to have, and the battle isn't knowing whether it pays off or not, but to kind of fine tune it so you can emphasize like it's the horns that are getting everyone happy, or let's get some more drums up in this mix. I think that's really key, and I love that you're keeping on working on it. Thank you so much for talking about great. I wrote this down. I got all these great notes here from our talk, which I can social.
You take notes like I do. Maybe you can read them later on. Maybe you can't.
That's exactly right. Great corn and good limestone water and temperature fluctuations. I mean, this is whiskey from Indiana, baby. And I want to one last question for you. You've come from the world of finance, and you've got partners who have come from banking and medicine, which is just amazing to Jeremy and I. What would you say to someone who's trying to get into beverage today? Wanting to start their own brand.
Don't start a whiskey company. No, I mean, beverage is a lot of fun, right? It means a lot of different things. I mean, now you're seeing these zero proof products, non-alcoholic, kombucha skyrocketed. Tea actually is almost in a resurgence. There's all types of different alcohol products out there, whether it's beer, spirits. I think the big thing, and this is entrepreneurship in general, is you got to have a passion. Because if you don't have a passion, when you get kicked in the teeth or, knocked down, which you're going to, right? Every entrepreneur has those moments. Is that passion, large enough, or do you have a big enough fire, right, to go and continue on? And so, that one certainly is make sure you have a passion for what you're doing. And I think anybody, who's created a successful beverage brand, from scratch, cashing out 401ks, guaranteeing bank notes. I mean, that's probably the most critical thing. And if you're smart enough, you'll figure out how to make it a success.
Thank you so much, Blake. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to having you in the same room as us, or regardless if you're in the same room or not, but tasting some of this whiskey together next time you're on our show. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Firebelly Social Show, where we feature mission-driven founders of food and beverage brands. And so happy to have had Blake Jones here from West Fork Whiskey. And we'll see. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.